I have a beautiful spirit who I've known for over a year. We met through a networking group, Epic. I'll give Epic Business Connections a shout out. Maria Garcia, who, when I first met her, shared with me that she is a WildFit coach and incredibly passionate about helping people take back their overall health, really mind, body, and spirit through awareness around foods and what they put into their body. Since first meeting Maria, I really learned a lot about her story and how she kind of fell into that passion. And so I'm super excited to share with you all Maria Garcia so she can share how she kind of moved from not even able to, move her body to being empowered and now helping other people to take ownership of their own health. So, welcome, Maria.
Thank you for that lovely intro, Carrie.
Absolutely. I'm super excited for you to be here and to kind of share with the community your story of overcoming because as you know, I work with people who struggle with addiction and mental health struggles, right? And it's easy when you're in that lens to feel like everything's just really hard and there's no possible way out. But you experienced a very difficult journey with your health, but because you had that never give up attitude, you were able to overcome challenges that some people never do. And now we're teaching other people to do that. So I'm so honored because I know you can provide valuable information to my community. So talk to me a little bit about your journey. How did you find Wild Fit? And why are you passionate about teaching people about the benefits of what they put in their body?
So the journey was very long and it began when I was 25 years old. I was working for a company. I thought everything was going great. I was playing hard, but I was partying just as hard. And you know
Isn't
all
that
about
how it goes? Play
that.
hard, work hard.
Mhm. So one day I was at my mom's house for lunch. It was Sunday. They always do lunch on Sundays, like family day. And after lunch, and we had a beautiful spread, all kinds of food. And after lunch, I did not feel well. And I thought to myself, I must have food poisoning. And it began with me hearing noise. And it took me about 30 seconds to realize it was in my own head. And I was like, wow, what is that? And all of a sudden, I hung up the phone and I felt like somebody had, bam, smacked me across the head with a cast iron pan.
Wow.
And I fell on my bed in the fetal position because I had extreme vertigo as well. And all of a sudden, I began to vomit, and things were going downhill really quickly. And a friend of mine was in the other room. He heard kind of commotion. He came over to look, saw what was going on, and he called my mother, who was upstairs. She came down and looked at me, thought I had food poisoning as well. I thought I had food poisoning, but
Wow.
they called the ambulance anyway. The ambulance came. They asked me a couple of questions, like who is the president, what year are we in, and although my speech was at times incoherent, by that point I must have answered them in a way that was pretty satisfactory to them because they left.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, they left. They left and they said you could probably get to the hospital faster if you need to go because there was feet of snow on the ground and they just didn't think I was in a serious condition enough. They never suspected what was really happening because why would you? I was
Yeah,
25 and I was perfectly healthy looking anyway.
yeah. It's so true.
So
So
then I get,
but you're sick, so your mom takes you to the hospital?
yeah, my friends ended up taking me to the hospital a couple of hours later. And I get to the waiting room. And what do you do in the emergency room? You sit and wait, right? So I'm sitting there waiting. Finally, they take me in and they run a bunch of tests. Eventually, somebody gets back to me and says, Miss, we think you may be having a stroke. And I was like, first thought was so much for food poisoning,
Yeah.
right?
The fact
Second
that you
thought,
were coherent, like, you know what I mean? I think of stroke and I think about a mutual person that we know who just passed away, but you're like pretty much hanging out for hours. And interesting, I find it fascinating that you had like this horrendous headache, but you were still attributing it to food poisoning. Yeah, we don't
the
know what we
stories
don't
we
know,
thought,
right? So you're at the hospital and they tell you they suspect that. What then?
I thought to myself, what's a stroke? I'd never even heard of the word.
Oh
I
my
had
God,
never even
really?
heard of it. Yep,
That's wild.
yeah. And within 24 hours, I had been transferred to a hospital that specializes in strokes. And by now I got an operation, but not right away. I had to wait until the following morning because it was Sunday. There were feet of snow on the ground. There were no doctors, so nobody could come in until Monday. Finally, on Monday, I get an operation where they put in I don't even know what it's called, but some
Like a
device.
stent?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a device they put into your groin. I think it's called a balloon, and it
Uh,
busts the clot in your brain somehow. And that's what they did.
wow.
And to them, the operation was a success because I think 70% of people that get the operation back in 2005 did not survive,
Yeah.
right? But for me, it didn't look like a success because now not only could I not move because I'd lost my ability to move overnight, I couldn't talk, I couldn't do anything. I was paralyzed from here down.
Oh my God. I would have been frustrated at the lack of urgency that the hospital had. Cause you know what I mean? I just feel like that's negligent that they knew you were having a stroke but made you wait.
It is, yeah, I can dwell on that, and
Yeah,
I
but
did
it's
for a
not
long
worth it.
time.
Yeah, I totally get it.
Yeah.
So okay, so you wake up from this surgery and now you're unable to move, you can't speak. What next?
What made it even worse is that everybody thought I was in some type of coma, so they didn't realize that I could see everything and I could hear everything. They really thought I was just in a vegetative state. And
Wow.
that went on for about 2 weeks before
Whoa.
somebody realized, oh, she can actually hear.
Damn.
Yeah. Oh, it sucked. It sucked
Yeah,
so
because
bad.
you're here listening to everything people are saying. I imagine your family's worried that they're going through all their emotions.
Yep. And I think the hospital had organ donation people speak to my family. It was
Wow.
bad.
Yeah. So somebody realizes that you are coherent, so to speak, and then they what? Stick you in rehab or
No, I was in the ICU for a really long time. Really long. Somebody realized I was there. A friend of mine came in. She was showing me pictures, and she could see by the look in my eyes that I was understanding. Then they devised a way to communicate with me. Blink once for yes, twice for no. That
yeah,
was my very first communication. And I was in the ICU for a long time. I had a respirator, a ventilator. That's a tube in your mouth,
yep.
right? Finally, when they took that tube out of my mouth, I think it was a month in, So I had that tube for a very long time, inordinate amount of time. And oh, I dreaded the cleanings because I would gag and choke and oh, it was horrible. Anyway, so finally they decided to put me on nothing. They in a regular room in the stroke unit and they removed the ventilator from my mouth. But I wasn't ready for that. And within, I think, 1 or 2 days, they had to perform an emergency trach because I almost died one night.
because you
I
weren't
woke up
breathing.
unable to breathe. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
And thank God my mother was there because if she hadn't been there, they would have never gotten to me in time.
Yeah, it's so funny how the universe works. Like, we don't get what we think we want, but we always get what we need, you know? And I'm just a firm believer that when it's our time to go, it's going to happen, which is why I'm not afraid of death. But um it's just our miracles are all around when we're willing to look for them. And I believe your mom was one of your miracles that night, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, my family was a miracle throughout because if it wasn't for their support, I'd given up. It was them that held on to hope. They created shifts so somebody would be with me at the hospital 24 hours a day.
Yeah. That's powerful. Love is so
Yeah.
powerful. So you are now in this hospital. What was the rehabilitation like? So you have a trach. Obviously, I imagine they worked on your legs and keeping you from having atrophy, which is when your muscles stop working daily. When was it that you were able to start to get up out of your bed, or did that take months and months and months?
Oh, yeah. That took a while. And interestingly enough, I was in two different hospitals. The first hospital I was at almost 2 months. This was a regular hospital. And most of the time I was there, I was in the ICU.
Yeah.
And they didn't move me. They did not do anything, they didn't do any therapy on me. But,
Really?
yeah, but, and this is what I believe laid the foundation for me to make such a great recovery, is that my brother, who was with me every day in one of his shifts, he would move all my limbs for at least half an hour a day
I
when
agree.
nobody
Go
else was.
pro. Yep. Yeah, interesting. So then you're transported to another hospital, what, when you no longer needed the trach?
No, I went to another hospital still with the trach on, but this was a rehab hospital.
Yep.
So I'd be doing rehab for 3 hours a day.
Yeah.
The trach stayed on for a while.
Gotcha.
Trach and peg. I had a feeding tube too.
Yeah. So what
So I
was
go to,
rehab like?
oh, I thought to myself, yes, I finally get to stop looking at these four walls. I was so frustrated. I go to this rehab hospital and I'm thinking they're gonna patch me right up. I'm gonna go home and I'll be fine. This is what I thought because I didn't know what a stroke was.
Yeah.
I didn't know. So I thought that's what I thought was gonna happen.
Yep.
And then the first morning, the therapist comes in. She is validating me and she gives me a hairbrush. By this point, I could move my right side kind of well-ish. My left side, I couldn't move so well at all.
So did you right? So I'm curious because I mean I don't know. Did it come back naturally movement, or did they, because you said you could move, did you just will yourself to move it? Because it's something, our mind is a powerful thing.
Well, funny enough, I this is what I believe, and I could be wrong, but this is just something that I think is plausible. Because I didn't know what a stroke was, I made such a good recovery because I didn't have preconceived notions
I
Oh,
totally agree. Yep. Think about it. Like what you don't know. And people who have there's a story I'll never forget. There was a doctor diagnosed with brain cancer, right? And I mean, the man declined rapidly and died. As they're cleaning out his office, they found a scan of his brain like 25 years earlier. He had the same spot on his brain then. He just didn't know it. So the moment he knew, that's when his preconceived notions kicked in, and then that's where he yeah, started to decline. And that's why I tell people all the time, I got you like a fish, because that's what I start to strip down all the time. And the work I do is, what habits, beliefs, and ideologies do you have that are preventing you from achieving whatever results you want? And you fortunately didn't know. So you started to heal. And I mean, that alone is pretty powerful.
yeah. Yep. And it all began very gradually. I
Yeah.
started moving my right index finger like half an inch. That
Well,
was the
yeah, because
first
you're
move.
bored, right? So what else do you have to do but just sit there and like mind to muscle connection?
Bored, I was out of my mind. I was so depressed.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say in that respect, your family just talked to you and kept you positive, or
I wouldn't say they kept me positive. They kept me company.
gotcha.
I
Was
don't
there
think there's
ever a
anything.
point where you were just like, screw this, I'd rather just have died? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I would say for the first couple of years, even.
Yeah. Gotcha. So okay, so this rehabilitation person comes in and tries to have you brush your hair.
Yeah, so she gives me the hairbrush and I'm thinking, oh, this is easy, right? And I grab the brush, get it to about here. Realize I'm not getting it anywhere near my head. And all of a sudden I just broke out, sobbing uncontrollably,
Yeah.
sobbing. And I realized, holy crap, the mountain that lay ahead of me.
Yeah. Yep. And that, it's interesting. Your story is no different than anybody's, in that when we look at the big picture, right? When you look at the amount of focus and effort that you need to apply to achieve any goal, whether it's sobriety or overcoming anxiety, depression, it feels insurmountable. But when you focus specifically on that one task at hand, aka brushing your hair or moving your index finger, you're then able to focus on that one thing. And then you look back and you're like, damn, right?
Well, I don't think I ever looked back going, damn, because it took me a very, very long time to get back to myself,
You
to
don't
get
look
back to,
back now and be like, holy shit, this is what I overcame.
yeah, but it took me 20 years.
Yeah, but think about it. That's 20 years. Like there are people who could have been in your condition for 20 years because they weren't willing to keep trying to bend their index finger. And I think that's the reality. Like this is what I really want the community to hear, whether it's your community or my community. It does not matter how long it takes. All that matters is that you get there. If I focused on how long it's going to take me to become a global motivational speaker, I wouldn't do the work. That's just arduous. Like, but if I'm just like every day I'm gonna show up and be 100% me and be honest and speak my truth, well, it can't not happen. I don't have to worry about how long. So it's still worth celebrating, even if it was 20 years. That's just my humble opinion.
And you're right. I mean, when I look at it in hindsight, I'm glad for the journey. And I'm
Yeah,
glad things panned out the way they did. But for a very, very long time, I was stuck in the why me? This is unfair, blah, blah, blah. And I think the only reason, or one of the reasons that I made the recovery I did is because I was 25. And I
yeah,
thought to myself, if I have to live another 50 years, let's say, I cannot live like this.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally get it. And it's so funny, I think for me, that was very I don't know that I had that moment. I definitely really dug in when my sister died, but there were many moments where I'm like, I can't imagine living the next 40, 50, 60 years drinking alcohol every day. I just couldn't, or doing drugs, or in fact working. And so it's interesting. So all right, so you realize through the brush that you now have a really difficult road of healing ahead of you. I'm curious, was there anybody within the rehabilitation center that you kind of felt was like somebody who really supported you and pushed you through your recovery, or was that predominantly your family?
I would say it was predominantly my family.
Yep.
And at the rehab center, I was in the stroke unit, and I was the youngest one there.
Yeah,
By
I
far,
bet.
by far.
Yeah. So what was your recovery like? So you started with brushing your hair.
Yeah, it was really long. I mean, I was at that rehab hospital for 2 months, and
Yep.
then insurance ran out. When insurance ran out, I went home in a wheelchair. And that's when I realized, oh, my wheelchair doesn't fit through any of my doorways.
Yeah.
And that's when I graduated to using a walker at home.
Because you wouldn't give up. You're like, I gotta.
Because a necessity is the mother of all learning.
Yeah, it's true. Yep. So then how did you so you went through this whole process of relearning how to speak, relearning how to walk and your fine motor skills. How then did you start to correlate what we put into our body with healing from having been through a stroke?
I didn't put two and two together right away. Actually, it took me a very long time. When I was at the hospital, because I had the trach,
Yep,
when I began to eat, I used to dream of food. They'd leave the TV on. I was like tortured because I was watching food commercials and I'm like, it's just, I want a bite of something.
yep.
So when I finally started to eat, my favorite food became ice cream.
Mm,
Nice and soft, and I could swallow it. And just, I wasn't being mindful of what I was putting in my body, which made me gain 40 pounds,
gotcha.
right?
So now you're
And
having to relearn how to walk while learning how to navigate your body with more weight on it. Yeah,
yeah, and I had to go through the whole learn to walk, talk, write. I went through wheelchair, quad cane, 4 pound, that's a 4 pound cane, the walker, the gamut, the whole gamut. I basically had to relive childhood. Except this time I realized, holy crap, I can't do that anymore.
yeah, yep.
And I
So
got to wear diapers at 25, which was
yeah, well, you
crazy.
know what? It's so funny because there's something so humbling, right? Because we all have the ego and we all are vain as a result. And then life smacks you in the face and you're like, damn. And that's why it cracks me up when people struggle asking for help. And I'm going to tell you why. You need help coming into this world. You're going to need help when you're ill. And you're going to need help dying because somebody's got to handle your body. Somebody's got to handle your stuff. So I always remind myself when I start to feel a little insecure, I'm like, wait a minute, the reality is if this lady has to grab my boob and squish it to keep me from, having breast cancer, is that really the end of the world? So but I get it at 25. I don't know, I definitely didn't have that lens. So I can see where that would be really difficult to get used to.
Yeah. It was like you said, it was very, very humbling.
Yep.
And I think ego is it's an interesting thing. I don't think I had much of it because of childhood wounds and worthless or worthiness issues, but that definitely was even more humbling.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, ego is also, I'm going to just educate people since you said that. Um, Ego doesn't necessarily mean an inflated sense of self. Ego is also the voice that will, as quickly as it can, tell you that you're unworthy and that you're not good enough and that you're bad and all of those things. And so I think that's really important for the community to hear, because um we all struggle. We have all come into this human experience with an ego. In fact, my personal understanding is that that's what we're meant to transcend. But um you know, I think there's most people are vain, right? It takes us time, and I think it takes age for us to move from a place where we're not worried about somebody helping us wipe our butt if we can't, right? I mean, that's just
Um,
because we have been brought up in a society where external appearances and superficiality is judged all the time.
Well, in that light, I had a huge ego.
Well, but hey, I work on it. I literally ran in from the gym and I'm like, ooh, I need my eyeliner and all that. I'm like, no, I don't. I'm gonna show up and do me, and it is what it is. But it takes me thinking about it, so it that's a practice within itself. But anyway, so getting back to your story, I really want to kind of understand how you felt. So you, from what you told me in the past conversations, you reached a certain level of um health, right? You were able to maintain mobility and go about your daily life relatively normal, but there were still some impeding like movement issues and stuff. And so you decided that you wanted to really have the best recovery possible. And then so was it the weight that forced you to look at your diet, or was it that you wanted to recover even more from the stroke?
Well, that's interesting because I didn't realize the connection between food, body, mind, and soul until much later.
Yeah.
I remember I was doing chelation therapy, which is when they cleanse the heavy metals out of our body, that I was told not to eat certain things. And I was like, okay. But I didn't know why. I didn't realize
Mm.
that. But that was the beginning of that seed that was planted.
Gotta love those seeds.
And it wasn't until 15 years after the stroke, I had lost the weight already. Well, weight was not an issue. But 15 years after the stroke, I saw an ad for a nutrition course. And I was like, oh, that sounds cool. Because I had been playing with my diet for a number of years. And I thought, well, whatever. I'm going to learn something new about something I already like. So I
Yeah.
enrolled. But never in a million years did I think anything could or would change. Because I
Yeah.
had been on a plateau for at least 5 years.
So for the audience, what was that plateau like? So when you were at your most recovered prior to studying this nutritional course, what limitations or what were you still struggling to be able to do without struggle?
I was what I would say maybe 70% recovered. And what that looked like is I still had mobility issues. I wasn't using any aid, but I couldn't walk properly and my balance was not good at all.
Mhm.
And my voice is even sexier because
It's really raspy. I love your voice, by the way. You could totally be on one of those commercials and like do all the voiceovers and stuff. I love it.
Yeah, and it was breathier, so it was even more hard to understand me. And yeah, I think those are I never really had cognitive issues because my stroke was in the brainstem
Got it.
primarily. That's
Ooh.
what controls motor
Yeah.
functions.
Yeah. I'm curious, did they ever tell you what caused it? It's just like a freak body embolism that just boom.
There are a couple of theories, and one theory says it was possibly related to birth control.
Mm, gotcha.
Yeah,
All right. So, okay, so you have accepted that you're going to, struggle with balance and struggle to walk properly, and you have this amazing voice. So you're like, okay, cool. Now you join this nutrition course, and what happens?
wow, within 3 months, I had better skin, hair, and nails. Some of my white hair turned dark. I was like, wow, this is amazing.
That is cool.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
And
So you were able to turn your gray hairs back to their color?
not all of them, but some of
Okay.
them. Some of them,
That's super cool.
yeah. And I was more outspoken. This might be a little too much information, but
Never
my
TMI.
period, okay. My period was stronger than it had been 10 years prior. So
Yeah.
my organs were de-aging
Yep.
internally. And I just
Okay.
looked more youthful.
Ooh. I mean, that's something that I never considered, right? Like, I guess your flow is a direct result on how your organs are operating. Well, yeah, that makes sense because you're pumping blood throughout your body. So, very cool.
Mhm.
Yep.
But the real magic started happening within 6 months. I realized, holy crap. One morning I woke up and I'm like, I want to go hiking. So I looked for a meetup group and I went hiking on a real 3 hour hike, which I could have never in a million years done prior to the program.
Yeah.
All of a sudden,
I'm curious with the program. I know that its foundations is in nutrition and what you consume, but is there a fitness element, or you just naturally had the energy to go on this hike because of what you were putting into your body?
I just naturally have the energy to go on a hike.
Wow.
The
Okay.
program is just nutrition.
Yeah. Okay. So you're like, whoa, obviously. Um, your speech got better, your balance got better. And when was it that you decided that you wanted to help other people take back their health?
I was so shocked at what had happened. I couldn't believe that I can make another 20% recovery 15 years after a stroke.
Yeah.
That's like this seemingly impossible. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh, wait a second. I need to know what the sorcery is
Yeah.
by which this happens. I could not understand. And I thought, okay, I'm gonna peek under the hood and I'm gonna do this coaching program. And that's what I did. And it wasn't until my first pilot class when I had clients with mind-blowing results that I was like, yes, this is what I want. I want to be the catalyst for other people's change.
Yeah. So, can you give me an example of maybe a client who went through this journey with you and what their results were?
Yeah, I have so many of them, but I'll start with my pilot class. There was a female who, 40 years old at the time, she was pretty overweight. And when she used to walk up and down the stairs, she had to do 2 steps. There were 2 feet on one stair.
Yeah.
And at 40 years old, I mean, that's kind of sad, you know.
Yeah.
By the end of the program, she could walk up and down the stairs normally.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah. So how like so how could the community or rather what would could the community expect from working with you? So just say they're like, okay, I definitely well actually even before that question, you were able to recover 20% better from a stroke. Have there been other ailments that you have seen kind of either be mitigated or a dramatic decrease in their effects based on this program? And if so, what are some type of ailments that people have that could really benefit from this program?
And I'm so glad you asked that question because I had an 85-year-old client. She was type 2 diabetic. She had been injecting insulin for 10 years, 53 units a day. Within, I don't know, 8 or 10 weeks, she stopped
Yeah.
injecting insulin.
I love hearing that. I think that one, diabetes, type 2 diabetes is on the rise because of the food that people are consuming. And two, I mean, even people who I love immensely in my family, they just kind of resign to the fact that they have to be on metformin or that they have to take insulin. And I'm like, you don't. If you're type 1
No.
diabetes, it's different story maybe, but even then, I mean, that's semantics because I believe our mind is incredibly powerful, but that takes a lot of discipline and dedication. But still, what we put into our body is really, really, um, like it's responsible for our overall everything, mind, body, energy, everything. So, okay, so now that we know, like, because I'm thinking in my mind, like autoimmune diseases, Hashimoto,
For sure.
Crohn's, like all of these different, and then obviously even like maybe lymphedema because people absorb water. But so what could people expect from working with you, Maria? And how do they find you?
The first thing you can expect, which is mind-blowing in itself, is to finally understand your food psychology and to understand why you crave certain things, why you don't like others. And we dive deeply into your food psychology so you don't go back to your old behavior.
Yeah,
And without that, that's where other programs fail. And that's what makes this program so unique.
yeah,
Because once you have that understanding, once you have that awareness, then you can move on.
yep. I agree. I totally agree. Well, I know that sugar causes you to eat more stuff. So I tell people all the time, it's a dopamine hit. I mean, on top of what it does to your body, it's like this fast boom, right? Feel good in the moment. But when our body is constantly working to be in homeostasis, right? You get that quick hit. Now your body's going to flood your brain with other chemicals to combat that quick hit, which lasts a lot longer, by the way, adrenaline, norepinephrine, cortisol. So then now you're sitting in this ick. So what do? You want more sugar to get that hit. And it's this really crazy cycle.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens. And even worse, you have so much insulin coursing through your body that you need more sugar for that insulin because now it's too much insulin. And so you're craving.
Interesting. All right,
Yeah.
so you teach awareness, which I am a huge fan of because once you're aware, even if you don't take action right away, that awareness, you can't take that awareness back. You know what I mean? Like I started studying psychology at 14. It didn't mean that I implemented all of the things that I understood, but I certainly had at the back of my mind this knowledge around the choices I was making and what it was doing because of the awareness that I had when I had studied it. So then you work with them to change their food habits or what?
Well, first they need to understand their food habits, and then we make slow incremental changes
Yeah.
so your body and mind can adapt easily and you don't go into shock or some kind of cleansing reaction, which is quite possible when you clean up your diet.
Yeah. Yeah, something you said I love is you start to make small changes, which for anybody in the community, I mean, that is so profound because what happens is most people are like, oh, I want to lose 20 pounds. And they go on this insane fitness and diet regimen. Your subconscious cannot cope with that. And so what happens is you may see results, but inevitably your brain will inevitably cause you to self-sabotage even if you don't realize it, because your subconscious can't handle those big changes like that. It does have to be slow. And I would even take a step further and say you got to celebrate each small change, because it's a
Yes.
celebrating that is actually rewiring your subconscious so that you can continue to make more changes that are going to be long lasting and impactful.
Yeah, and I love that you said it because we notice changes within 4 weeks. Your body's already changing. Sometimes people's faces start to look different. It's
Yep.
amazing. Their sleep improves, and we're always mindful to point to those things
Yeah.
that are improving because some people don't even realize it until you ask them, hey, how's your sleep? Oh, well, I'm actually sleeping better.
Yeah.
And they don't notice.
Boy,
That was
I
like me.
I think about the gym analogy. How many people go to the gym and start working out, but they weigh themselves and they don't see results because one, your fat's turning into muscle. You're not going to lose weight right away. That's
Right,
why to
right.
like measure yourself is more beneficial, because you'll see the inches, drop rather than see the weight drop instantaneously. And that's where people that psychology comes. And that's where I think coaching is really critical for everybody. I think we all need somebody who can point out our blind spots and our areas that we don't see for ourselves, because to your point, people are sleeping better but they don't even ever stop to realize it until you're like, oh, and then they're like, oh yeah. So and then, because I like to coach people, how do you support people on the emotional side of this journey? Because I imagine shifting food behaviors, which is, in my opinion, one of the most pervasive addictions that, particularly America, but
Mm.
globally, you start to see it. How do you support people from an emotional perspective?
We are there every step of the way. We do live coaching twice a week for the whole duration of the program. And it's true, like you said, when you start cleaning up your diet and you stop reaching for comfort foods, that's when all your problems bubble up. And you can't comfort yourself by eating a piece of cake, and all of a sudden you have to deal with it.
Yep, it's so true. Yeah. So you just kind of support them by holding space for them.
Yeah, hold space for them, ask questions that may help them come to their answer,
Yeah.
conclusion,
Yep. So
maybe
asking
point things.
big questions.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so where can people find you? I, of course, will add all your information, but if you want to kind of shout out where they can find you,
Yeah, so primarily you can find me at my website, which is genuinelymaria.com.
I love that. And for anybody, I mean, I've known Maria, as I said, and she is genuine, and I just love your energy. And this has been such a gift. I have two more questions, and then we'll wrap it up. One, what's next for you? Like, what's something that Maria Garcia is chasing?
That's such a great question. It's something I've been thinking about for the past couple of months. I would like to inspire millions. And I want to go on a speaker journey, and just like you, I want to globally.
Yeah, girl, I
Yeah.
love that. Because once you put it out there, you speak that into existence. And I tell people all the time, we don't have to know how we're going to do it. We just know we'll do it. And that's so beautiful. And then the last question, what is one sound piece of wisdom or something that you have kind of leaned into, a quote, a phrase, a book, anything that you want to share with the community that will help them continue to move through hard so that they can overcome challenges and experience, you know, profound like changes in their own life, much like you.
Oh my gosh, Carrie, you're asking me for one thing?
Well, sure. You can add a couple if you want. But what's something
Okay,
that you think about and you're like, I want to share this one piece of wisdom every time I talk to somebody.
okay. So, number one, small incremental changes. That's clutch.
Yep, I love it.
Number two, start with water. Just start with water. Drink more water.
Do you know? I'm gonna tell you right now, most of my clients who struggle with addiction, that's their one task is to place water by their bedside, drink it in the morning, and celebrate. There's so many effects. One, you and I both know like 90% of the world is dehydrated. Most people eat because they're thirsty, not because they're hungry. Number two, it's something manageable that you can say it doesn't take a lot of time, but it also takes effort that you can celebrate, and in doing that, you build up this self reliance in yourself and say, hey, if I can drink water for 7 days and celebrate that, then maybe I can do something else. So that is spot on advice. I love it. Maria, thank you so much
Wait,
for your
and
time. Yeah, go
and I
ahead.
have one more big one, and this is the one I really want people to take home. The body has the capacity to heal, but you need to give it the right building blocks. But your body truly can heal itself.
Yes, it can. I 100% agree and have experienced many moments of that myself. So, thank you so much, Maria, for your time. I am honored and privileged. It's always so wonderful to connect with you. It really is. You have such a great spirit about you. And for anybody who was interested in anything they heard today, please don't hesitate to reach out to Maria, tap her on the shoulder, reach out to me. I can certainly make the introduction and, yeah, chase after those health goals like Maria has. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carrie. This is so much fun.